Welcome everybody, my name is Brett Wells, I'm with Sigma Photo. Today I'd like to introduce to you wildlife photography, at least the basics of it. Photographing animals can be really fun, it can be very challenging, it can be very rewarding as well. There are an infinite number of subjects, there are tons of locations, places to go to photograph those animals. There is no limit to the equipment that you can buy, but you can also do a lot with a very basic kit, something a little bit more simple. There are tons of accessories as well if that's your type of thing. Photographing animals in their natural environment can be really incredible, thrill of a lifetime, but it can be very difficult to get to those locations. It takes a lot of time. It's also very expensive in a lot of those cases. So finding animals closer to home, things in zoos, animal parks, wildlife sanctuaries, those types of locations can be a great opportunity to photograph animals without all of the extras of trying to travel overseas or to the other side of the country or wherever the case may be. For one, the animals are generally closer to you. They can be a bit more habituated, so they're a little more comfortable with you. There's more variety in one place. It's easier to go home with a number of good photographs in a shorter amount of time. For photographing animals in a closer environment, I like lenses with a medium kind of zoom range. I would start about the 70 to 200 sports from Sigma. If I have an APS-C camera, the 18 to 300 is a great all-around lens, or something like the 100 to 400, which is one of my favorites. And that gives me the range to capture things that are closer and farther away, bigger animals, smaller animals, and just great amount of flexibility in one lens that I can put on a camera and not really have to take a whole bag full of equipment with me. You might want to consider a small tripod to take on the trip as well if you're going to stage a shot or stand and wait for the action to take place or something, and that just allows you to let go of the camera for a little bit. And in that case, you might want a small camera bag to carry it around as well. When you talk about animals that are farther away in different environments, then you're going to start looking at longer lenses, like a lens that goes to 500 or 600, and at that point you probably do want a tripod and something bigger as well. As far as basic settings go, I start with a wide aperture. That's going to give me more light. It's a bigger opening. That's a smaller number on the f-stop, so f2.8, f4, f5.6, whatever your lens goes to. That's going to help blur the background out as well and help the subject stand out from the background, just make it pop a little bit. Shutter speed, you want it high enough to handhold, and I know lenses that have good stabilizers, you can get away with a lot slower shutter speeds, but if your shutter speed's too slow, you're not ready for action that takes place. A lot of times the animals aren't doing anything, but if they do, you want to be prepared to capture the motion. There's nothing wrong with turning the ISO up a stop or two just to have that extra shutter speed when you need it. So ISO, maybe 200 or 400 to start on a bright sunny day. If you're shooting a little bit earlier or later, cloudy day, you might go up to 800, maybe even 1600, but that's going to be a good starting point. Some things to consider. Animals are generally more active in the morning, a lot of species also in the evening. It also gives us a great light. It tends to be a little bit warmer, cross shadows, just flattering light from almost any kind of subject in the morning and the evening, what we call the golden hours. It can also be a better time. There might not be as many crowds or whatever for getting into some place. Check the weather ahead of time. Not to say that you don't want to shoot if there's going to be a little sprinkle. A few clouds in the sky can actually be good for the light and decrease the contrast range. Soften the shadows just a little bit, especially if you're going to be shooting in the middle of the day. For any type of animal photography, I always recommend study your animals, study their behavior. The more you know about them, the more prepared you are for photographing them and coming back with good results. Be careful around wild animals. I know it's a zoo. Hopefully they're on the other side of the wall or the fence, but they are still wild and they still can do things if you get close enough, but also be aware of your surroundings. I've seen a lot of people with a camera in front of their face focused on a subject and they have no idea what's going on behind them, or they're taking a step forward or backward and trip before they know what's going on. So just be aware of your surroundings. As always, you can find us at sigmaphoto.com. You can email info@sigmaphoto.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you very much for tuning in.